So as many of you would have felt that being in a city is an opportunity to do economically well, and that's why they say the cities are the economic growth engines of any economy, and India is no exception. 4 or 5 cities of the country are the only job creators, and for obvious reasons. Wherever the jobs, people will migrate there, and that puts enormous strain on infrastructure, especially the mobility infrastructure. And given that most of our cities are unplanned, they just grew. Once the cities grow, then the infrastructure planners come about trying to fix the problem, and that has always been a challenge. In case of Bangalore, it certainly has been a very big challenge. So what happens when you have unplanned growth and huge migration from rural India to urban India? Transport is the first one which gets impacted, because in cities, for economy to move on, people have to move. You have to go from home to office, you have to go from office to place of entertainment, maybe hospitals, education institutions. So without mobility, there is no economy. So what do we do about mobility? I think given that our cities are unplanned, we did not plan for the population growth, cities are fully built up, so it is almost impossible to add infrastructure. It's not possible to demolish buildings and widen the streets. So given that we can't widen the streets, what do we do with the existing space? Of course, metro is a good option. It's a very expensive option. India, 20 odd cities of India are going to be having metro. We already have around 10-12 cities running metro, but then metro cannot reach every nook and corner. In case of Bangalore, 45 lakh people every day use 6,000 buses of BMTC, whereas metro, which is 42 kilometers, carries only 4.5 lakh people. So buses carry still 10 times more commuters and users than metro. The problem is, to reach the bus stop, you have to walk. Bus does not come next to your home. So from your home to the bus stop, it could be 500 meters, it could be 1 kilometer, it could be 2 kilometers. But that's also not possible because we have no walkable footpaths. And this is the problem true for metro also. Metro station might be 1 kilometer. The question is, 1 kilometer or 2 kilometer, how do you go? That we call in transport language first and last mile connectivity. Home to the bus stop or metro is called first mile, and then from bus stop, your destination bus stop, to the office or other place is called last mile. First and last mile connectivity is a major challenge, especially where density of transportation is low in cities like India. So what do we do about it? I think we also need to see how it impacts. It's not just a jam. On average, before Corona and COVID, people used to spend anywhere between 1.5 to 3 hours in traffic. In Bangalore alone, and in IT sector alone, the economic loss was around $4 billion per year. That's huge. That's almost 50,000 crores. So it is also bad for economy, bad for environment, so much of pollution, and bad for our health. So I think solving this problem should be a national issue of importance, which everybody should be working on. What we are doing in Bangalore, I think primarily there are 3 parameters on which we work. First, improve the public transport. Improving the public transport means putting additional metro lines, which take years. What happens in the interim? Introduce more buses, but if the buses are going slower than your car, who is going to take the buses? And also, given that city like Bangalore, where a lot of white collar people are there, we can afford motorcycles, cars. That's why everybody comes out with their own vehicle. So unless we make buses go faster than the private vehicle, I think ridership will not be good. Given that still ridership is very, very high, 45 lakh people are there, but how can it be made even more? How the white collar people who have their own vehicles leave their own vehicles and go in the public transport? For that, we have created bus priority lanes, which are essentially the left lane on a 3-lane road, essentially is dedicated to the bus. So we've already started that project on Outer Ring Road, which is 17 kilometer, which is IT corridor. Close to 12 lakh people work on that corridor. we have an operational bus priority lane. But then to reach the bus, you also need to reach the bus stop. So for that, adjoining the bus priority lane, we also created a cycle lane. And in fact, the first phase of cycle lane is around 80 kilometers, both way included. But then you can create bus priority lanes, you can create cycle lanes, and bus priority lane, of course, the government is going to invest. This is a public infrastructure. But the first and last mile connectivity usually is done in private sector. And if you are not able to, not necessarily you are going to take your own bike or cycle and leave it at the bus stop or leave it at the metro station. But not every bus stop you can leave your cycle or motorcycle. It will just go away. There is not enough parking space. And that is where the role of private sector comes in. And that's where this concept of public bike sharing. Bicycle was not the primary mode for first or last mile connectivity because there was no infrastructure first to use it on a congested road. It's dangerous. So by creating bus priority lane, at least we took care of that part. But now you don't want to carry your own cycle and leave it anywhere. And that's where you need some private sector player to come in, who essentially provides cycles and the electric mobility, because we do not want to add to pollution any further. So that's where this company called YULU, which I have been an investor, and starting from the concept, the problem was well understood. I have been part of advisory committee. I have been part of smart city mission for the country. I continue to advise government of Karnataka and many other state governments. We understood the solution, but we didn't know how to do it and who to do it. And there is certain entrepreneurs came together, and they thought of this concept of public bike sharing using both cycles and low speed electric vehicles, and that has become almost instant hit in Bangalore for sure. So coming to YULU, of course it was huge challenge, and that's why you see there are not many players. You can invest money, buy the vehicles, but then what vehicles? What are the challenges? Because you have to have least amount of friction. Now, helmet in public bike sharing system, giving everybody a helmet is almost impossible. Registration, driving license, younger people 18 years, college going kids, many ladies, they don't have the license. So while we were working on providing the supply of YULU vehicles, there was a challenge of which vehicle, what kind of vehicle. So we went ahead and worked with the government and created a new category of electric vehicles, which is called YULU Miracle. There is a policy and there is a specification for that. It has to be below 25 kilometer speed. Motor has to be less than 1 kilowatt hour, and there are certain other parameters. Now this was created specifically for public bike sharing using electric bikes, and YULU was at the forefront of creating this specification. So I think this is a message for entrepreneurs. Don't just give up because policies don't exist. I think you should be part of the policy making as well. Go and convince the policy makers that here is an opportunity, here is a need, here is a social good also, because sometimes it might be good for private enterprise point of view. The government says fine, I mean it doesn't help socially, so why should we do it? So you need to create a compelling argument for why this policy is needed, not only for the business of YULU or any other startup, but for the country and society as a whole. I think YULU was able to do it successfully. So we almost became the de facto partners, advisors, and the collaborators with the government in solving this very, very important problem. Now, what happens when you have something like this? It's a chicken and egg. You may wait for all the infrastructure to come in. Cycle lane has just started the work, but this company started 3 years ago. So there is in a democracy, in an economy, you have to create demand and supply will follow, or you create supply, demand will follow, and that's the difference between developed and developing economy. I think in developing economy you have to create the demand first, then supply will come, and that's what I think YULU did. Once they became very, very popular, I think government realized that it is important to create dedicated cycle lanes, and I'm sure with this many more players will come. Now to summarize, I think we need to understand as a policy makers as city dwellers, as people who essentially understand the interplay between economy, urbanization, socio-economic well-being of the people, that mobility, especially urban mobility, is an integral part of our economic cycle. And if we ignore that, we can't afford to grow as fast as we want. So our Prime Minister has promised to have metro in 25 cities by 2025. I think it is private sector's responsibility to come and complement that by initiatives like YULU to connect the first and last mile. Without that, I think it will be suboptimal usage of the huge cost, because metro costs almost anywhere between 100 to 200 crores per kilometer. Having invested that kind of money, and very few metros in the world make money on their own. So unless the ridership is high, it is not going to work. So I think first thing, and also the appeal to the users. I know you can afford your cars, I know you can afford your motorcycles. But the question is, if everybody comes on cars and motorcycles, you are going to choke the road and you'll go nowhere. So if the buses are going faster than you because of the bus priority lane, take the buses, because you'll be reaching faster in comfort. You can internet, you can web browsing, you can surf, sitting in the comfort of an AC bus. Or you can also use your private transport and get stuck. I think option is with us, and we as responsible citizens must choose socially responsible, environmentally sustainable, and economically viable option, which I think is public transport coupled with first and last mile connectivity with options like YULU and others. Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to all of you, and I hope I'll be able to change some of you to consider this as something which is as fundamental as any other aspect of our life and society. Thank you.